What was that? She whispered. But the question had nowhere to land. The shower did little to steady her. The water sputtered weakly from the nozzle, uneven and unsatisfying, lacking any real pressure. It ran over her skin without force, without presence. Terror frowned, adjusting the tap, waiting for it to improve. It didn't. Seriously, she muttered. She stepped back, letting the water fall uselessly behind her. New house, she said aloud, irritation replacing the lingering edge of something else. Already problem. She dried off quickly, her movements sharper now, grounding herself in something tangible. Then she reached for her phone. Garth answered after a few rings, the sound of movement in the background. "You're up early," he said. "So are you," she replied. "I'm on my way to site." Of course he was. "There's an issue with the water pressure," she said, skipping over everything else. "The shower barely works." A pause, then focus. "Okay," he said. "Check a few things first. Is it just the upstairs or the whole house?" "I don't know yet." "Go turn on the kitchen tap. See if it's the same." She sighed softly, but moved anyway, walking back toward the stairs as he continued. Could be air in the line, or a valve not fully open. His voice settled into that familiar cadence. Problem, solution, step by step, grounded, controlled. Terror listened, following halfway, then stopping. "I'll just call a plumber," she said. "No." The response was immediate, firm. She blinked. "It'll be quicker." "No, Terror," Garth cut in. "The house is new. That's on the seller. Don't pay someone for something that should be covered." She leaned against the wall, exhaling. "Fine." A brief pause. Then, more quietly, "And I don't want random guys coming into the house while I'm not there." There it was. Not jealousy, not quite. Something else. Protective, controlled. Tara tilted her head slightly. I can handle myself, Garth. I know, he said. That's not the point. She didn't push it further. All right, she said instead. I'll check the valves. Good. Another pause. Shorter this time. I'll call you later, he added. Okay. The line ended. Tara lowered the phone slowly, her gaze drifting back toward the bedroom, toward the balcony, toward the house that now felt occupied in a way it hadn't before. She pushed the thought aside. Work, boxes, orders, things she could control. She moved through the day again, filling the space, making progress, clicking through lists, ordering what was missing, building something that resembled normal. But somewhere beneath it, quiet, persistent, that moment remained, watching her back. Darkness came slowly, as if the desert resisted surrendering the day. The last light clung to the edges of the horizon, stretched thin and fragile, before finally dissolving into a deepening blue. Inside, the house dimmed with it, rooms settling into shadow, corners softening into something less defined. Tara sat at the edge of the bed, phone pressed to her ear. Garth's voice carried through, steady but edged with fatigue. It's not holding pressure along the eastern line, he was saying. We think there's a restriction somewhere, but it's not obvious. Could be deeper than we thought. He didn't complain. He never did. Even when the problems stacked up, even when the hours stretched beyond reason, he spoke about them like puzzles, things to be solved, not endured. Tara leaned back slightly, her gaze drifting toward the dark outline of the balcony door. That sounds frustrating, she offered. It's work, he replied simply. Of course it was. She shifted, tucking one leg beneath her. I checked everything you told me to earlier, she said. The taps, the valves, nothing changed. The water pressure is still terrible. Her pause, then measured. All right, leave it. I'll look at it when I get back. Terror frowned. And when is that? Not sure yet. There it was again. Not sure. She exhaled, sharper this time. So what? You expect me to just not have a proper shower until then? For days, weeks? It's not that serious, Tara. Her expression hardened slightly. It's serious enough, she said. We just moved into a brand new house, Garth. Things should work. They will, he replied. We just need to handle it properly. Properly, she echoed, a note of tension slipping in. Meaning your way. Meaning the right way, he corrected. She stood then, pacing slowly across the room. And what does that mean exactly? She asked. Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like I'm supposed to sit here and wait for you to come fix it. That's not what I said. It's what you implied. Garth exhaled on the other end, the sound tight now. Terror. The house is under warranty. You don't start calling people in and messing with things before checking that. That's just practical, she cut in, or controlling. Silence, brief, heavy. That's not fair, he said finally. No, she replied, her voice quieter now, but sharper. Because it feels like there's always a right way with you, a correct sequence, a system, and I'm just expected to fall in line with it. That's not what this is about, God said, though there was strain now between the calm. Then what is it about? Another pause. Longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. It's about not creating unnecessary problems. Terror let out a soft, humorless breath. And I'm the one creating problems. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. The tension stretched between them, thin, taut, familiar in a way neither of them liked to acknowledge. Then, I need to get back to work, Garth said. Of course he did. Right, Tara replied. A beat. Lock the doors, he added. There it was again. Instruction. habit. Good night, God. Good night. The call ended. The silence that followed felt louder than it should have. Then a knock, terror stilled, soft, deliberate. She turned toward the front door, her pulse shifting slightly as she listened. Nothing. Then another knock, this one firmer. Her brow creased. Kenzie, at this hour. Annoyance surfaced quickly, cutting through the lingering tension of the call. She pushed herself upright and made her way downstairs. Her steps measured but edged with irritation. What now? She reached the door, pausing only briefly before pulling it open, and stopped. It was him, the man from the window. Up close, there was no mistaking it. Not just the face, though it was clearer now, sharper in detail, but the presence, the same quiet control, the same deliberate stillness that seemed to hold him slightly apart from everything around him. He stood there casually, dressed simply, as though this were the most natural thing in the world. He didn't smile. Instead, he extended his hand. "My name is Miah," he said. Terror blinked. "Miah," she repeated, the word catching slightly as it left her. He nodded once. She studied him, something curious threading through her expression. "Miah," she said again, as if testing it. A faint shift touched her mouth, almost a smile, but not quite. "Jeremiah," he clarified. "Miah is, well, mine." Terror let out a small, soft chuckle. "Terror," she replied. He inclined his head slightly. "Terror," he echoed. The name settled differently in his voice. There was a brief pause. Then, "I saw you watching me yesterday morning," he said, just like that. No hesitation, no softness to cushion it. Terror's eyes flickered, but she didn't retreat. Instead, her gaze sharpened. And you thought introducing yourself would make that less strange? She asked. For a moment, nothing. Then he smiled. Not broadly, not openly, just enough. It felt appropriate, he said. They held each other's gaze for a beat longer than necessary. Then he glanced past her, briefly taking in the dim interior of the house. How are you finding the area? He asked. The house, specifically. Tara leaned lightly against the doorframe. I love it, she said, but her eyes betrayed her. He noticed. Of course he did. And who do you live with? She asked, deflecting. Alone, he replied. The word landed quietly. Tara nodded once, absorbing it. Then, almost without thinking, there's an issue with the water pressure, she said. Upstairs, it's barely working. Something shifted in his expression. Not surprise, disapproval. He glanced past her again, this time more deliberately. That shouldn't happen, he said. No, Tara agreed. It shouldn't. He stepped slightly closer, his gaze moving toward the interior, as if already tracing the unseen structure of the house. Craftsmanship, he said slowly, almost thoughtfully, is a kind of promise. When something is built properly, it holds, not just physically, but in intention. Every joint, every line. It reflects the care of the person who made it. His eyes flicked back to hers. When that care is absent, he continued, the failure isn't just mechanical. It's a quiet kind of dishonesty. The words settled between them. Tara felt something shift, subtle but real. Before she could respond, he moved past her into the house. I'll take a look, he said, as if the decision had already been made. Tara turned curiously, watching him as he stepped inside, his presence filling the space in a way that felt both intrusive and strangely natural. The door remained open behind her, and for a moment she didn't close it. He passed her without brushing against her, and yet she felt it. Not touch, no, something quieter, a presence that lingered in the air he displaced. Terror caught the scent of him as he moved deeper into the house. Something clean but grounded, like freshly cut wood in autumn. The kind that still held warmth beneath its surface. It settled into the space behind him, but persistent. She closed the door slowly, almost as an afterthought, then followed. Miah didn't hesitate. He moved through the living room with the kind of unspoken certainty, not pausing to look around, not asking where anything was. His steps were measured, deliberate, as though the house had already introduced itself to him in some language she hadn't yet learned. Terror stayed close behind, her gaze fixed on him now. Not cautiously, but curiously. He reached the back of the kitchen and stopped at the door leading into the garage. Without breaking stride, he opened it. The light flicked on before the door had fully swung open. He didn't even look for the switch. Terra's brow tightened slightly. She followed him in. The garage was colder, emptier. The scent of new concrete and unfinished space lingered faintly. Against the far wall stood the water heater, silent, unassuming, its metal surface catching the overhead light. Miah stepped toward it and stopped. Stillness began. He looked at it, not hurriedly, not analytically in the way Garth would, but with a kind of quiet attention, as though listening for something beneath its surface. Terror folded her arms loosely. "Is yours in the same place?" she asked. It was casual. Almost. Miah didn't answer immediately. Most of the houses here have distinctly different floor plans, he said. The words came too easily, too certain. Terror's eyes narrowed just slightly. Miah seemed to catch it a fraction too late. His gaze shifted to her, quick, assessing, and something flickered there. Not quite concern, not quite correction. Then, a fair guess, he added smoothly. It's where I would have put it. Terror held his gaze for a moment longer than necessary, then let it pass. Miah turned his attention back to the unit. Open the garage door, he said. Terror didn't move. Why? She asked, her voice quiet but edged now with something sharper. He looked at her then, fully, and whatever question had been forming in her mind paused. His expression hadn't changed, but his eyes had. There was something in them. Not forceful, not demanding, but vivid. Alive in a way that didn't belong entirely to the moment. It struck her suddenly, unexpectedly. The dream, the horse, the way its presence had felt beneath her hand, steady, aware, impossibly calm, yet entirely untethered. The way it looked at her, as if it understood something she didn't yet have the words for. The same quiet depth, the same impossible stillness that wasn't still at all, but something coiled beneath it. Terror's breath slowed, then deepened. For a second, the garage fell away. The walls, the house, the narrow space between things, all of it dissolved into the same strange, suspended awareness she had felt standing in the hills beneath the golden sky. Her fingers twitched slightly at her side, as if remembering the warmth of something that had never truly been there. And without realizing it, she spoke softly, almost to herself. What are you doing here? The words hung between them, not directed, not entirely. Miah didn't answer. He just watched her, and in that silence, something shifted. slowly at first, so slowly it felt like the moment itself was stretching to accommodate him. He straightened from where he stood by the water heater, then stepped toward her with the quiet certainty that made the space between them feel intentional. Tara didn't move, not because she couldn't, but because something in her had chosen not to. He closed the distance, close enough that she felt it before anything else. The warmth of him radiating outward, steady and alive. His chest brushed hers, not forcefully, not rushed, just enough pressure to guide her back a step, then another, until her back met the wall. The contact grounded her and unmoored her all at once. His face hovered inches from hers, close enough that she could feel his breath, slow and measured against her skin, close enough that the world outside of that narrow space seemed irrelevant, distant, unreal. Her pulse betrayed her first, then her breath. He tilted his head slightly, the movement deliberate, his gaze never fully leaving hers until the last possible second. When it did, it slipped to the curve of her neck, as if drawn there by something deeper than thought. His arm lifted, bracing against the wall behind her, caging her in without force, without demand, just presence. He leaned in and breathed her in slowly. The sensation sent something quiet and electric through her, a recognition without language, a pull that felt older than reason. When his lips brushed her neck, it was barely there, a suggestion more than a touch, but it was enough. Tara's eyes fluttered closed, her body responding before her mind could intervene. There was no clarity in it, only sensation, heat rising beneath her skin, a loosening of the careful structure she held within. She felt suspended, like the moment in the dream, standing before something she could not name, yet understood in some instinctive, unguarded way. Her hand lifted slightly, uncertain, drawn, and just as she leaned toward him, click, the sharp mechanical sound cut cleanly through everything. Tara's eyes snapped open. The garage motor hummed to life. Miah had already stepped back. He hadn't rushed, hadn't startled. The shift was so smooth it felt like the movement had never existed outside of her. He turned casually, walking toward the opening door as it lifted slowly, revealing the dark outside. Without a word, he stepped out into it, gone. Terror remained where she was, her breath uneven, her body still caught in the echo of something she didn't fully understand. Anger rose, sharp, sudden, at him, at herself, at the ease of it, at how she hadn't stopped it, hadn't wanted to. What was that? She whispered again, though the question had grown heavier now. She pushed herself off the wall, trying to shake the heat from her body. The lingering pull of him still threaded through her senses. Why didn't he leave through the front door? The thought came, but it didn't settle. It didn't matter. Not really. She moved to the control panel and pressed the button. The garage door began its slow descent, the outside darkness folding away again. Halfway down, he reappeared. Miah stepped back inside with the same calm certainty, tilting his head just slightly to pass beneath the lowering door. In his hand, a hose trailed behind him, scraping softly across the floor, as if nothing had happened, as if the moment had been something private to her alone. Terror didn't move. She watched. He worked quietly, connecting the hose, adjusting valves, moving with the same measured focus. At times, he stepped inside, then back out again, refining something unseen. and every so often he looked at her. Those glances, brief, controlled, carried more weight than words. The garage seemed to tighten with them, the air thick with something unresolved. When he finally straightened, wiping his hands across his brow, leaving faint traces of dirt against his skin, he turned to her. "I want to show you something," he said. Tara didn't hesitate. She followed. Upstairs, through the house that suddenly felt unfamiliar, less hers, more his. He moved through it like he belonged, like the walls responded to him in some quiet, unseen way. Terror followed a step behind, aware now of how easily she had fallen into his pace, into his gravity. They entered the bedroom. The intimacy of it pressed in immediately. The bed, the scattered boxes, the quiet remnants of her life laid bare. Miah slowed slightly, his hand brushing the edge of the bed as he passed, then continued into the bathroom. The light flicked on. He reached for the shower. "Here?" he asked. Tara nodded. The water sputtered at first, uneven, uncertain. Then it steadied. The pressure built, the stream growing fuller, stronger, until it ran properly, clean and consistent. Tara stared. "That's better," she murmured. Miah nodded slightly. "Hard water," he said. "It settles, builds resistance. You have to clear it out before it learns to stay." His gaze met hers in the mirror. "You should flush the system in a year." She barely heard the instruction. He stepped closer, took her wrist gently, guided it beneath the stream. The water struck her skin, warm and insistent. She turned toward him, and whatever distance had remained between them collapsed. Time fractured after that, not into moments she could name, but into sensation, heat, closeness, Something overwhelming and consuming that blurred the edges of thought entirely. The house disappeared, the world narrowed, and then it was over. Terror lay across the bed, her body heavy, her mind quiet in a way she had never known. Not peaceful, not exactly, but absent of consequence. As if what had just happened existed outside the rules that governed everything else. Miah dressed in silence. No words, no lingering. Just movement. Then he left. The door remained slightly open behind him. Terror didn't follow, didn't think. She simply drifted, and sleep took her, deep, complete, without interruption. The ringing dragged her back, sharp, insistent. Terror stirred, disoriented, her body slow to respond as the sound echoed from downstairs. Her eyes opened. The room was dim again. She turned her head. The neighboring house. The light was on, but this time movement, quick, unsettled, almost frantic. She frowned faintly, still caught in the fog of sleep, then pushed herself upright. The phone kept ringing. She stumbled downstairs, grabbing it just before it stopped. Garth. Her stomach dropped. She answered. Hello? I'm outside, he said immediately. Can you open the garage? Terror froze. What are you doing here? She asked, her voice tightening. I'm here, he repeated. Open it. Her eyes darted around the house, the kitchen, the floor, the air itself. Nothing. No trace. Still, her pulse surged. She moved quickly, pressing the garage control. The door began to lift. Garth's truck rolled in, headlights cutting through the dim space. I didn't like how we left things, he said through the open window. And I'm not leaving you here without working water. So I drove back. You didn't have to, Tara started, her voice thin. It's not a problem. The engine idled. Then Garth stopped. His gaze shifted, locked on the water heater. Terror followed his line of sight. Everything looked normal, clean, undisturbed, and yet he stared, not curious, not confused, something else, something hollow. Garth, she said softly. He didn't answer. He leaned back in his seat, his eyes still fixed forward. Something behind them unraveling in silence. Time stretched, too long, too quiet. A cold, creeping feeling slid through Terror's chest, slow and instinctive. Something deeper than thought. He knows. The idea didn't come as a sentence. It came as a feeling. Garth finally moved. He stepped out of the car without a word and walked past her, not looking at her, not stopping, straight to the front door. Terror followed, her breath shallow. He pushed it open gently. It creaked slightly. He tilted his head. Not curiosity, in something like defeat. Then he closed it and locked it softly. He didn't look at her, not once. He moved with purpose, measured, contained, as if every step had already been decided before he took it. He retrieved his bags from the car, carrying them inside without pause. Terror followed at a distance, the space between them feeling deliberate now, chosen. Inside, Garth set his things down at the dining table and began unpacking immediately. Files spread out in neat lines, papers aligned with a precision that felt almost aggressive in its control. The house, once filled with quiet possibility, now held something else entirely. Silence, but heavier, charged. Do you want coffee? Tara asked, her voice softer than she intended. Garth didn't look up. Sure. She moved toward the kitchen automatically, reaching for a mug, then stopping. The fridge, the missing milk. Her hand hovered in the air before dropping back to her side. There's no milk, she said, turning halfway toward him. That got a glance. Brief, flat, dismissive. Black is fine. It wasn't about the coffee. She could feel it. Still, she made it anyway. The machine hummed, filled the space with something ordinary, something almost fragile in how normal it tried to be. She placed the cup near him. He didn't thank her, didn't acknowledge it at all. Terror lingered for a moment, then shifted her weight, her arms folding loosely across herself. It's late, she said. You should get some rest. Come upstairs. Garth paused, only slightly. Then he murmured something under his breath, too low, too contained for her to catch fully. It wasn't quite words, more like something pressed between them that hadn't found a way out. What? She asked. He shook his head once. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Terror stood there a second longer, waiting for something else, for an opening, for a crack in the silence. It didn't come. So she turned and left him there. The bedroom felt different now. Not unsafe, not unfamiliar, but aware. Terror sat on the edge of the bed, her hands resting on her lap, her mind finally catching up to everything her body had already lived through. What she had done. The word done felt strange, too solid, too final. She looked down at her hands as if they might hold the answer. Then her gaze shifted. The balcony, the neighboring house, the window. The light was still on. Of course it was. She stared at it, something sharp rising in her chest, something close to anger, though she couldn't fully place where it belonged. At him, at herself, at the fact that the house stood there at all, too close, too present, impossible to ignore. I wish you'd just disappear, she muttered under her breath, her voice barely more than air. But the house remained, unmoved, unbothered. She lay back slowly against the bed, her eyes still fixed on that window. Should I tell him? The thought came quietly, without urgency. She followed it, turned it over. Confession. The word carried weight, but not the kind she expected. There was no sharp edge of guilt waiting for her, no immediate collapse beneath it. Instead, something else surfaced, a memory, not of what had just happened, but of everything before it. Years of Garth, of steadiness, of structure, of quiet expectations that had never been spoken, but always felt present. She had never questioned them, not directly, but they had never felt like confinement, just reality, until that look, the way Miah had seen her, not as something to manage, not as something to guide or correct or stabilize, but as something that simply was, uncontained, uninterrupted, free. The realization settled slowly, like something rising from deep water. She hadn't known she felt contained, not truly. Not until she felt the absence of it. And now she couldn't unfeel it. Terror exhaled, her body softening into the mattress. Confession would require regret, and she wasn't sure she had any. Not yet. The thought lingered, then drifted. Sleep came gradually this time, not heavy, not consuming, but enough to pull her under. When she woke, Something was wrong. Not loudly, not immediately, just missing. Terror blinked, the soft morning light filtering into the room as she turned her head slightly. The bed beside her, empty, cold. She frowned faintly, pushing herself up onto her elbows. "Garth," she called, her voice still thick with sleep. No answer. The house waited, and only the silence returned.